Yeah, what's good, y'all? It's your man, the Bigga P, and I'm here to record my thoughts on the Manny Pacquiao-Chris Algieri pay-per-view. First of all, I'm gonna tell you in advance, I'm not even gonna attempt to pronounce the two Thai fighters' names that are on the card. I'm just gonna refer to them as Thai 1 and Thai 2, um, because I'm just not. It's too many damn syllables. So, with that note, I'll let me go talk about the first fight. It was Antonio DeMarco versus Jesse Vargas. Um, this fight was obviously was the most competitive fight on the card. It was very competitive, and it was in the beginning I thought it was just going to be a stinker because that's what it was turning out. That's what it was starting out to be. I didn't think there wasn't a lot of actually. There was a lot of that whole the pity pat type of action which I can't stand. But it slowly developed into an actual very, I wouldn't say close contest, but it was contested pretty evenly. There were some highlights where DeMarco actually, where DeMarco rocked Vargas with the same left hand that he hit John Molina, and that he used to stop him in the first round. He hit him with the same punch, and then we have Vargas of all people was able to stagger DeMarco a couple times with the right hand and left hooks, and it looks like because I was trying to find that fight where because I know Roy Jones was actually training was training just Jesse Vargas, and I was trying to find some of his influence. And for the most part, Vargas was a lot more fluid in his punches. Like his combination, his punch was actually a lot definitely improved. In previous fights, power's still not there yet, but but the fact that he was actually able to wobble DeMarco a couple times in the bout was impressive to me. Um, but one thing that I couldn't stand to hear was Lampley going off. Oh yes, Vargas. He hasn't stopped anyone in 8, 9, 10 fights or whatever. So what? Is he winning those fights? Yes, officially. Whether or not he won a couple of those fights altogether is a whole different argument. But the fact is, if HBO clearly has some sort of agenda with them, they're trying to build him up for something, on a main event level. So why do you keep mentioning that the dude has no power? Yes, he doesn't. He does. Yes, he doesn't crack all that much, But focus on his actual boxing, which was pretty good. Um, the fight was very competitive to the end. Demarco, I definitely gave the fight to Vargas because Demarco unfortunately suffers from the typical Mexican syndrome. He gets hit a lot. The defense was pretty nice. He came forward. He was landing some good shots, but there was just no defense behind him whatsoever, as usual. And unfortunately, Vargas has a pretty good solid chin, so you get those two things, and you have a recipe for defeat. So I think the scores were like 1-6, 112, which is pretty much in line with what I had. So Vargas retains the 140 belt he has. Even though we all know the WBA champion at 140 is Danny Garcia, but the WBA has its own nonsense with having 2 or 3 champions in the same weight class. It's just a whole bunch of nonsense. But I've talked about them before in a previous video. But I know Vargas now. They're trying to put him in a main event with Manny Pacquiao. That pay-per-view is not going to sell at all because Algieri, at least with Algieri fight, Algieri was going on the fact that he beat Ruslan Provodnikov, who stats at the time, he was still ingrained in people's minds, with the war of Timothy Bradley, and then him being the first person, obviously the first person, and then him stopping Mike Alvarado for the 140 belt. At least there was some momentum because Ruslan was such a favorite that he was actually able to come back and actually win that fight and outbox him. He has that. Vargas has none of that. Vargas's momentum is usually pretty much either A, pretty much he wins spotty or dodgy type of decisions, and he probably should have a couple losses on his record. And while his performance was good, it's certainly not a performance that makes me say, "Hey, let me go spend $65 or $70 of my hard-earned money, and let me go watch this pay-per-view where Jesse Vargas will most likely get annihilated by Manny Pacquiao." That's not going to happen. Vargas is going to have to face somebody significant I mean, it's a pity that he can't face his the other true champion in his actual organization in his weight class. But he's gonna have to face somebody and beat them impressively in order for me to even care about that fight. As for DeMarco, what do you do? He goes back to the drawing board. DeMarco is, it's one of the things too. He's not even like 30. Um, but this is the guy who's had a lot of tough fights. Pretty much DeMarco is known for being a couple things. He's known for being Valero's last opponent. He's known for whipping Linares after getting whipped for like 9 rounds, and then he's known for getting his ass handed to him by Adrian Broner. Dude is still serviceable. He's not like passive, but but he's had a lot of hard fights in such a relative and not even like he's not even 30 yet. So most likely we'll see him again in some form. HBO has enough people. I guess enough people at 140. I'm pretty sure you'll find him in some sort of showcase fight on an opener in the near future. All right. Next fight was the Vasily Lomachenko versus Thai number one. I can't pronounce his name. And Lomachenko, I have a little grudge with Lomachenko, mostly because of what he did to Gary Russell Jr. Now, I've mentioned before, I'm a Gary Russell Jr. stan. I'm a fan. I was a fan of Gary Russell, and I thought that that Lomachenko's was it 2 pro fights, one was not enough experience to actually deal with the 20-something fights that Gary Russell had. So of course, imagine to my dismay that Lomachenko pretty much put his foot in his ass. So yeah, I've been salty about that. So I wanted an upset to occur because Ty Fire is like, what is it? He was like 52-1, and his only loss and his only notable fight, at least I saw on BoxRec, his record was the fact that he lost to Chris John. And I didn't go into the full details because, as far as I know, Chris John, that could have been a dodgy decision too. As I was not a big fan of his either. But the fight itself, Lomachenko showed pretty much everything. Why he's so. Dude has fast twitch reflexes, the volume punching, um, the constant nonstop attack, the constant movement, the nonstop attack. Dude looked absolutely great. That is until he injured his right hand, or not. Was it his right hand or was it left hand? I forget. But his hand, and it was injured. Um, and even then, he was still handing out some work. He was still controlling the fight one-handed, but I was hoping, and this was the one fight I was expecting a KO because he did put him down early with a beautiful combination, one of the cleanest uppercuts I've seen in a while. But after that hand injury, he looked very ordinary. I think obviously this is as a pro, this was probably his first time in that type of adversity. And he was facing a lesser opponent whose only effective offensive attack that I saw was a left hook to the body, and not much else. And Lomachenko, although he ran a little bit too much for my liking, he still, like I said, he still controlled the fight with one arm. He was still handing out the work. He was still landing his uppercuts. And then in the last round, though, his father was telling him, don't punch with your injured hand. Don't punch him in the head. So what was he doing? He's punching him in his head. If you ever boxed or anything like that, if you've ever had a hand or wrist injury, especially those are probably some of the worst things in the world that you can do. To aggravate it, or you hit it against something incredibly hard, it's absolute murder. And I've done it myself. I've messed up my hand in my wrist before. And I have a problem, and I guess I was also enlightened to the fact that apparently he had this issue in the amateurs. I didn't know that. So while he won a clear and wide decision, I couldn't help but think that hand is probably going to be a problem for him in the future. And if he was facing someone a little bit more, let's just say he was facing any of the other featherweight champions like Walters or Gradovich, And it could have been the fight could have been a lot more interesting, so to speak. Because at least with those fights, I wouldn't expect him to get off the hook like what Lomachenko was actually doing. But like I said, I mean, it was his first time in some adversity as a pro, some real adversity as a pro. So I mean, he did what he did, and he grabbed, and he passed with flying colors. Um, and like I said, hopefully, I want to see a unification because the featherweight champions are all damn good. They are all excellent fighters, and I want to see him in with one of those fighters. Um, so yeah, that's about the fight. Now the co-main event fight, and this is the fight that I thought it was going to be the opener, the Zhou Shuming fight versus Thai number two. Um, Now I understand what Aram is trying to do in regard to Zhu. He's trying to, I guess he's trying to bring boxing. He's trying to get something going in China with boxing. He's trying to use Zhou Shuming, but I just don't see him going anywhere as a flyweight. Um, Mostly because he's in his 30s. He doesn't have a lot of power. He takes a lot of shots, although he seemingly has a very good chin. Um, and he's old, like because pretty much an aging flyweight is usually brutal losses start occurring because I don't know. I mean, probably because you can't really maintain stuff out of weight for forever. At least not without some type of loss of like physiology or something like that. So in my case, like I don't know where they're gonna take him because I don't think he can't beat any of the flyweight champions. Not in the I mean someone like Estrada would absolutely just destroy him. With that being said, the fight that he was Thai number two was interesting. I mean, it was entertaining at times. Like, he knocked him down a whole bunch of times. Thai fighter couldn't keep his punches, above the waist. He got a couple points taken, and then afterwards, he accidentally headbutt caught him in the eye. His eye turned into a mess, and Thai number two actually was starting to land them wild right hands. And I was like thinking, okay, maybe he might have a chance to actually knock him out. And I was actually hoping for a knockout too because I wanted to see what would happen. Um, but then unfortunately, Zoe actually did punctuate the fight with just one last knockdown, in which in the case they almost looked like he was about to get DDT'd into the mat, and Zoe pretty much had him out on his feet at the bell. I mean, like I said, it was a fun fight. It was a fight that it was like just a whole bunch of things going wrong one after another, so similar to the Lomachenko fight. Um, but at least Lomachenko, I mean, his upside is he's actually he's a featherweight champion. He holds a WBO belt. So like if Zoe actually wins a belt at flyweight in some legitimate fashion, not like someone's getting vacated and he's picking up a belt in against some some sub 50 type of opponent that he can outwork. Also, another thing is I couldn't believe why that fight was 12 rounds. Because usually his fights are like 10, 8, or 10. No, it was 8 rounds, and it was 12 rounds apparently because he holds he holds one of those minor WBO titles, WBO Intercontinental Flyweight title, or whatever the hell they call it. So that was the reason why it's 12 rounds. But that fight, I didn't want it to be 12 rounds. I wanted Zoe to actually probably put him away, which he couldn't do, unfortunately. Um, and it was hilarious because Freddie Roach is in Zoe's corner, and Manny's in the back. Manny's in the dressing room. He's over there trying to warm up. He can't warm up without him. Even though I'm pretty sure Manny should have a backup trainer to at least be able to do that for him. So I thought like pretty much as soon as the bell rang, Freddie was like, fuck it, let me just go back to the back and help Manny warm up. So yeah, like Zosman, like he shouldn't I know Aaron tries to stumble down the floor, but like I said, there's just no. I don't see any upside. I mean, he's entertaining. Don't get me wrong. I mean, from when I first saw him, I thought he was absolute rubbish. Too, he's serviceable. He's serviceable and he's entertaining, but I just don't see him because his boxing skills are not solid enough for me to think he can actually outbox anybody. and he doesn't have the power. And his style is suitable for someone who actually has some power, and he's not knocking. And he only has one stoppage in like 6 fights. So it's like, I just don't know what they where they're gonna go with him. But I'll watch him. But they gotta chill on keeping him. They gotta chill on putting him high in the card. He's a opener. Okay, he's an opener, and I mean, I'll even want to research how much he put because even though he probably got the second highest paycheck on the damn card. But yeah, they need to chill because, like I said, he's someone. Joe Schwing is someone that any top 10 fighter would probably knock him cold, or at least beat him up. So yeah, enough about that fight. So the fight. So now the Kim brings to the main event: Manny Pacquiao versus Chris Algieri. Now this fight, to let you know, I was totally against this fight. I did not want to see this fight. Algieri's fight, the win against Ruslan, it was a nice win. Don't get me wrong. It was extreme. It was a nice win, and I want him to actually build on it. Go through his gauntlet of 140 challengers. Get some more fights underneath his belt before he went on to a significant fight. But Arum, for whatever reason, decides to fast track him to that, to that fight. And I mean, I already knew. I was like, this is not. I mean, this is Algieri has absolutely nothing. Algieri, he boxes nice. That's pretty much. He has good movement. He's not a hard puncher. He's another one. He has a good jab. And like I said, and I mean, his mechanics are solid. He's just, he's not somebody that should have gotten a pot fight so damn soon. And the fight itself, let's just say I've never witnessed such a one-sided main event pay-per-view fight. I've never seen it before. I mean, when you get scores like 119, 103, two cards, and then 120, 102, you like what the fuck is that? Like you can't have scores like that. There's no way. I mean, I've never seen scores like that ever. Because usually, and the thing is that because there were 6, 7 knockdowns on the fight, usually you pull somebody out. If they're that far behind, you usually pull somebody out. To give them save them some dignity, save some face. But Chris had Chris's strategy fight. I don't know what it was. I mean, he showed movement. Like he showed good movement. He showed movement side to side, in which Manny effortlessly cut the ring off on him. He did it very quickly in the first round. So I already knew something was going on. And usually when you have someone that can cut the ring off you like that, you want to try to throw something to get their respect. Something. I mean, and Chris was not doing that often. I mean, the shots he was landing, I mean, it didn't seem like it was bothering Manny, whatever. But he needed to throw more of those shots so Manny could, so Manny would have to reset, and try to go after him again. But it was just like, it seemed like Chris was just, allergic to mounting an offense. And what happened was he was starting getting caught. The left hand. So although one of those knockdowns was not a real knockdown, it was more or less a combination of a punch landing as Chris was sliding. I mean, you could tell he was sliding because both his legs went out from under him. It went backwards. That should have not been a knockdown. But it got to the point where it was just more or less a glorified sparring match. It was just like, Chris, what was your strategy? And then Chris's corner, the most idiotic corner I've seen since Andre Berto's corner. I mentioned in one of the forums I post on. I mentioned when I watched the 24/7 episode with them, I noticed that Chris didn't have any boxing people in his corner. Someone that actually has credentials in boxing. It was just MMA this, MMA that. There's no problem with that, but this is a fight against Manny Pacquiao. You need somebody with a boxing mind to devise boxing strategies. And you're not going to beat Manny Pacquiao with an MMA trainer. You're not going to, because it's not that type of fight. And then the type of shit that I was hearing from the corner was, we gotta let him out the cage. Let him out the cage in what? You know, it's 10-11. You're saying that stupid shit, and then Chris has already been down 6 or 7 times. Like, what the hell are you doing? What the hell? What the hell was Chris? Chris didn't let nothing out. He couldn't stand still for just a minute to actually try to trade with Manny, try to get his respect on the offense. He couldn't do that, and it's just like, the ref and his course should just pull him out. Because he's a young kid, like, just saving the dignity of actually getting, just to losing that wide. I mean, I knew the fight was gonna be wide, but when you lose by 18 on an official card and 17, like, he's like, what are you doing? Like, you really think that Chris has a shot against a guy who not only Manny, who not only adjusted quick, and literally, and Chris didn't adjust. He make no adjustments because he couldn't stop anything. Um, I mean, it was a nice display by Manny. I mean, I personally wish for the KO too, and the KO should have happened. But hey, stoppage to stoppage. I just hope, um, in this next fight, whoever it is, like, there's no, like, there can't be any bullshit fights like that. I mean, that fight should not have been on pay per view. I mean, you gotta put that on regular HBO, and that would have been fine with me because I actually paid for that. I actually paid for my premiums. Um, it was just, I mean, it was a nice sparring, but that fight told me absolutely nothing. And that fight is the type of, that's like baby food. Like, that's the type of stuff you don't want fighters to actually have. Algieri is a good fighter, but he wasn't that type of caliber fighter. He wasn't ready for something like that, and it showed. And that's the type of, because that's the type of fight that actually hurts pay-per-views. Um, no one's gonna buy, in peripheral back. No one's gonna buy another mismatch like that. Now, as far as Jerry, I mean, he did his best, but like I said, it was just the stage he was on. He wasn't ready for it. It wasn't the type. It wasn't the type of stage that he was ready to be on. And it's a shame that he lost so wide. And originally, I thought, hey, he got his 1.5 and he keeps his 140 belt, but apparently, that title's getting, WBO is vacating that belt. Why, I don't know, because it's, he's not like he went for another organization's belt. He went for the 147 belt at WBO. So, but hey, like I said, he got payday, and who even knows if he's even gonna come back? Because I know he had this doctor, to go, trying to be a doctor and everything like that. So, I know. I guess we'll see. I mean, maybe he can use that money to get out of his basement apartment, um, and do something constructive. But I mean, like I said, I mean, I'm pretty sure Chris may be back. Who even knows? But just to lose that wide is really going to hurt his credibility. Um, just a little bit. Now, as for Manny, I know that, Max asked him the question about Floyd Mayweather, and he was like, first he did this thing with this commercial where he says, like, oh, he's gonna fight me. I thought that was, no, I'm not gonna admit, I actually laughed at that a little bit. Um, then afterwards he said, maybe he's ready for now next year in 2015. So that's the fight that needs to happen in 2015 for those two. Long awaited, we waited for at least until 2008 for a fight like this, and now it needs to happen because we can't take any more of these type of fights from either of them anymore, especially on pay-per-view. So yeah, so those are my thoughts about the pay-per-view right now. And yep, until next time. All right, peace.